Hello. Good morning. I'd like to welcome you all today to today's session, and the session is entitled 5 Things That Will Help Streamline NIS2 Compliance. Today, we're going to talk through and hopefully help you on your journey about NIS2. I'm delighted to welcome Itai Sassoon, CEO of Commugen. I'm Michael Conway of Renaissance. Renaissance partners with Commugen in this space, and we're delighted to have Itai available to us today to talk through NIS2, to talk through trying to make life easier, because all of us are faced with the same sort of challenges, the issues, etc., that we are all aware of. A couple of things in terms of the housekeeping that we'd just like to highlight today. All attendees are muted for the session, but you'll be unmuted for the Q&A. The session is being recorded. Unfortunately, there are a few people who are unable to attend and would like to see the session later on. And indeed, if any of you wish to share the session later on, it'll be made available to you. So if you wish to revisit it or review it, or indeed share it with any colleagues. If you've any questions, please enter them into chat or send them directly to myself or into the Q&A session. We want to make this as interactive as possible. It's really important that this answers the questions that you want to ask and assists you in your journey, if you like, through the NIS2 compliance challenge. And that's really critical for us. So in order for you to get the best out of this, it's really important that you interact and throw the questions out. Indeed, if you have any issues, queries, or whatever it may be, let's throw them out there and let's discuss them. We want to help organizations cut through the noise and find practical steps regardless of where you are in your compliance journey. And really, that's the objective of today. It's interesting, you know, everybody talks about compliance. They talk about NIS2, they talk about DORA, they talk about whatever the compliance drivers are that everybody has, and indeed, some individuals may have more than one compliance driver. And then preparing for that and getting ready for that journey is really the challenge. And I saw that recently, and there's many Irish CISOs that I speak to admit they aren't and still aren't prepared for NIS2. And recently I read a report which says that 2/3 of CISOs claim that the NIS2 compliance is their biggest challenge to date.
Wow.
So, Itai, perhaps I'll let you introduce yourself briefly, and then maybe take that as a question and say what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you, Michael, for hosting me today in the webinar, and of course, good morning to everybody that is joining us. I'm seeing many attendees already are with us today. My name is Itai Sassoon. I'm the CEO of Commugen, and in essence, what we are trying to do here in Commugen is to help organizations and enterprises, and of course their security teams, to automate as much as possible from the cybersecurity GRC perspective. And the reason we are doing this is because every CISO I'm meeting with, and they can be from Ireland, from the EU, from North America, from Asia Pacific, all of them are telling me a very similar thing. All of them are saying that risk management is very manual, that compliance is very repetitive, and actually this is what we will speak about today, right? How we are streamlining many of those processes in NIS2. And in essence, what the Commugen solution is doing is helping to automate and streamline many of those cumbersome and mundane tasks of cybersecurity GRC. Actually building a program that is robust and actionable and as seamless as possible. And I think today what we will focus on, as you're saying, Michael, is on NIS2. And this is something we are hearing. I can tell you every conversation we are having in Ireland and throughout the EU, this is something that comes up. CISOs are asking me, how can you help me comply with this? How can you be in assistance to everything we need to do when it comes to NIS2? Because I will tell you one thing, the requirements can be daunting. And it's no wonder that 2/3 of CISOs in Ireland are saying that they're finding it difficult to comply with all of those. So this is, again, a short introduction to myself and to Commugen. And of course, in a minute, we will dive into all of the ways where Commugen and Renaissance can help you to streamline those requirements. Thank you.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, Ty, thank you for that. And as I mentioned, let's look at 5 things that might help you, because I mean, the key thing, I guess, is you guys want to leave this session and say, well, listen, there's things that we've learned, there's things that we're aware of, there's things that now can help you in your journey. So let's delve into some of those. I mean, like, you know, automation is a key area, a massive area, and then we see that as a challenge. And you know, these are I think the automation will pop up here as one of the key things here. But if automation is a key element, and in terms of automation, you know, everybody, organizations, public sector or whatever, they're relying on manual processes. Ultimately, what risks does it create relying on manual processes, and the challenges of keeping those in control, and etc.?
Yes. So thank you for this question, Michael. I think that not using automation or relying too much on manual work, first of all, creates cybersecurity risks and create operational risks as well. First of all, manual work can also be subjected to mistakes, right? We are all human, and we are all making mistakes. And because of that, doing things in the manual way just creates another risk. On top of that, the amount of work that needs to be done just cannot be answered only with manual tools, right? We have, I don't know, risks of year 2025, and we are seeing cyber risks growing every year. We can't stay with tools of, I don't know, the last century, right? If we will try to answer those risks and those requirements with, you know, spreadsheets and with pen and paper drills and with just doing things on our own, it will just not cut it, right? We need something more advanced. And we are seeing the advancements of technology is allowing us to have a great deal of automation, things that only a few years ago sounded like, I don't know, dreams. And I'm not even speaking about AI. Even without AI, I think that current tools with integrations that tools are offering today, like Commugen of REST API and webhook integration with other tools in your estate, those can be cybersecurity tools, those can be your ERP, your ticketing, and other things as well. The great deal of automation that can happen here is delivering a lot of value to CISOs, to organizations that are using automation. And I just want to wrap up and give you one more point about automation to keep in mind, Michael. And this is the fact that even if we can do things manually, even if it will not cause any more risks, most CISOs I'm speaking with just don't have the manpower to do everything, because NIS2 is just another requirement. We all need to be, I don't know, Cyber Essentials compliant, and ISO 27001 compliant, and GDPR compliant. And NIS2 is coming on top of this. It's not like the regulator is saying, you know what, Michael, I'm adding NIS2, but I'm taking, I don't know, GDPR off the plate, because I know you have a lot on your plate and I want to be fair with you, right? This is not the case.
And it is interesting, because we come across the comment all the time, and you know, if I look at the list of people who are attending and looking at watching the session now, everybody I'm sure will say that they have a challenge with resourcing and with people, and I often use the comment would say, listen, you can't find the right people, and if you could find the right people, you can't afford the right people, and if you could afford them and find them, you can't keep them, because somebody else will come in and want them. So automation is critical, I guess. I guess that there is a question, though, that we come across in automation, and people say, well, you know, is automation not expensive and overly complex? Like, how's that changed recently? What's happened in that area?
Yeah. So again, I think it's a brilliant question, and you know, for some people, when you're speaking about automation, they are getting back to this, I don't know, 90s, 80s kind of dream about automation replacing all of us and making us coffee and everything. Today, I think automation is something much more visible and something that is happening all the time, even if we are not looking at it, right? Automatically creating dashboards, automatically sending notifications, automatically summing up scores and risks. And I think this is something that today is very reachable. And the fact that Commugen is a no-code based solution allows for this automation to be deployed very quickly and very easily. I think having solutions today that are easy to use and easy to deploy, and automation tools as well that are easy to use and easy to deploy, are something, it's really a must. And I can tell you that we are seeing, you know, every week, new organizations, new clients joining Commugen and using those automation features. again, reducing hours and hours every day and every week.
And it is interesting. I see you're victimizing people from the 80s. Well, I'm well before the 80s, so I'm good. But I mean, I know that we've a lot to get through today, and maybe let's maybe look at the one of the second area that we can look maybe to assist and help and streamline in terms of the third party risk management. And that's really a challenge. We've seen that as a real challenge for a lot of people, because they're saying, you know, it's do you have control, etc., in that area? But NIS2, it places huge emphasis on that. So what challenges are organizations facing in terms of looking at the whole vendor risk management area?
Yeah. So you know, Michael, I think that within NIS2, I think the two most challenging aspects that NIS2 is bringing to the table today is, first of all, third-party risk management and the very strict requirement on supplier risk, on governing this third-party risk management piece, and of course, incident response and the need to tell the regulator when something is happening, material breach, and all of that. But let's keep that for later on. With third-party risk management, I think that the entire industry is evolving and maturing on that note very rapidly in recent years. And I think now organizations that are trying to do third-party in the old manual way will just not be able to do it properly, because NIS2 had such strict requirements on how to do third-party risk management. You just have to use a tool that automates this for you, right? And when I see third-party risk management, I always tend to divide it into three parts that are being done in the Commugen platform. First of all, get all of your vendors in the same place and score them basically, right? Based on the general risk level that they are facing the organization, even without or before asking them. First of all, have a look inside the organization and understand what risk am I facing for this specific supplier from this specific vendor. Stage one. Stage two, for the more risky vendors or the ones that we need to assess, let's send them a questionnaire automatically from the system, right? They will get, of course, a notification from the system. They will need to answer the questionnaire. Again, all web-based. You don't need to send them an email. The system is doing it for you. They're entering, they're answering the questionnaires, and they're wrapping up. And the third stage is auditing the information that you have gathered. So in this three-step approach, you are putting everything in one place. You are sending those questionnaires out, and then eventually you are evaluating and auditing and deciding whether you want to add some preventive controls, whether you want to ask something additional from the vendor, and so on and so forth. So again, with streamlining and automating the process, as I've just described, I think this can become from a, again, very daunting task to something that can be streamlined, automated, and can be much more manageable, let's say.
Yeah, and okay, so in let's say in complex environments like healthcare or finance or whatever, you know, our annual questionnaires, they're effectively no longer sufficient at this stage. Would that be a fair point?
So I think, first of all, this is definitely something we need to think about, right? How are we improving our evaluation methods, right? How are we creating something that is maybe not annual, but something that happens even on a shorter cycle, something that connects to, let's say, to not third party, but fourth party evaluators, right? How are we monitoring things from, again, automatically, and how are we creating a holistic approach of seeing a vendor and the entire relationship our organization have with the vendor, right? Because in this case, we need to combine the perspective of the information security specialist, of the business owner that really works with this vendor and understand what they do and why we need them, and of course with a procurement as well that needs to provide some insight. So again, having things managed in a very well documented GRC platform, I think is a very big advantage on that note.
And how do you then, from a risk mapping point of view and enforcing internal controls, how is that handled? Is that can you maybe take me through that sort of your view as to where that's ultimately going to end?
Yes. So I think as you're mentioning, I think the next bit that is super important when we need to streamline NIS2 compliant is control enforcement, right? Okay. Because it's one thing to have a policy document, just say, yes, we are NIS2 compliant because we have policies in place to do A, B, C, and D. It's a
Okay,
completely different thing to make sure that it's really those controls are really set in place in order to enforce those policies. Yeah.
but they have these policies on paper, but really it's the gap between documenting that paper to moving to actually implementation, I guess, is what you're highlighting there. Is that really the key issue there?
I think this is definitely the case. And, Michael, I'm sure you've seen it in dozens of organizations of, the stark difference between the policies and between what's really happening in the organization. Am I right with this?
Well, no, everything's always perfect in me. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the policy is great, and it's like the plan is always good till it's actually till it's activated. The policy is great, but it's that documentation and the implementation is the real thing. So is the real challenge. So then, if from the point of view of where Commugen is sitting in this, how are you guys handling that?
Yes. So I think this is a great question. I think it relates to the broader understanding of GRC and compliance, right? Because, GRC is not an individual sport, right? Meaning, even if the CISO is an amazing guy, super talented, super smart, he won't be able to do it on his own, or she won't be able to do it on her own. We need to work as a team, because when we are doing compliance, we need to make sure that the IT are on board and legal are on board. And again, when we are speaking about vendors, that procurement are on board. So we'll know, who are all of the vendors we are even working with. So we need a lot of people to be working together in order to make it happen. And when we are relying on pen and paper or spreadsheets or even a legacy GRC tooling, those are just not sufficient, right? And one of the ways this collaboration, this collaborative work is happening on top of a modern GRC platform like Commugen is by enforcing the controls, is by sending tests every week, every month, every quarter, every year, right? Depending on the specific frequency, you need to test those controls, but making sure that things are not only staying, again, as a policy, but also are translated to controls, to tests, and to have the proper evidence on board as well. Because again, the next step of this is what will happen when an auditor will come in, right? How will you prove them, Michael, that your organization, that Renaissance, is really compliant with NIS2, ISO 27001, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, and right. I guess that area, board level governance and accountability, and how you actually prove to everybody's good friends, the auditors who come in, and it's everything is fine till something goes wrong, and then that's when it all starts. So how do you? That's obviously critical when you're in regulated sectors, and boards now and the board level governance is a key responsibility of organizations. It's not something that they can just sort of say, listen, we got it wrong and we'll do it again better next time. But there's a demand now for proof of enforcement. And what's your thoughts on that? How you actually prove, okay, so you've had your policies, you've done these things, but how do you actually prove that you've actually enforced things?
Yeah. So I think you're raising two very important topics here. The first one is the board oversight, right? I tend to say that, 5 to 10 years ago, cybersecurity was, you can say, an afterthought for the board, right? This is not something that the board of directors or senior leadership would take as the first thing they need to think about. Today, and this is something that comes up in recent years in every survey, in every research, when you're reading the research of Munich or Allianz, asking business leaders about business risks, cyber risk always come either first or second, right? Because the risk is so large, the board understand that they need to ask and they need to have oversight over what's happening. And by the way, NIS2 also have some clauses and some sections about this specifically, about the requirement to have proper board oversight, right? About the board having some responsibility in governing how the organization is managing cybersecurity risk. So this is the first topic. And I'm hearing CISOs coming to me every week almost and telling me, what, Itai, things have changed. A few years ago, the board was, also for us, cybersecurity folks, was an afterthought, right? We wouldn't have prepared our entire program and geared our entire work towards what will be shown to the board, how we will present it to them. But today, things have changed dramatically. And the language where we are speaking to the board should always be the business language. And GRC, I think, governance, risk management, and compliance, is the bridge between the very technical cybersecurity and the business jargon, right? The business language. So this is one thing about board oversight. I hope, or are you seeing it similarly, Michael, before we are getting to the evidence part?
No, absolutely. I mean, the thing about boards, there was a time that, as you said, cybersecurity, etc., and compliance, they were an afterthought. They didn't sit at the board level. The responsibility they got reported through finance or whatever it was, or whatever. But now we're seeing that and it's absolutely true in Ireland. I think it's true globally, to be quite frank, that board level governance and accountability is key. Board members now have key responsibilities, and if you're sitting on a board of a large institution, large organization, you don't want to lose that role. You don't want to be called out as somebody who's so they demand proof, and they need to be able to see that proof, and what we're seeing absolutely is, unless you have the right type of tools and the right types of technologies, you're not going to be able to bring this type of proof to the stage. And I see you popped up there dashboards as visibility is a key element of what people need to see. And we're definitely seeing the requirement for people who are saying, listen, visibility, I need to be able to see it, I need to be able to understand it, I need to be able to prove it, I need to be able to talk about it, and I need to be able to talk to the regulators and the inspectors, or whatever it might be, those auditors. So perhaps it might be interesting to understand and get a flavor for how you look from a dashboard point of view in terms of how you bring that together with Commugen. Is that something perhaps you could show us at this stage?
Yes, definitely, Michael, and I would like actually to show you a few things on actually a live demo now. But first of all, I want just to comment on what you've said now about the need to not only tell but also show the evidence and show things in reality. I just had a few weeks ago a conversation with a cybersecurity compliance manager for a large software company, right, operating all over the world, 30 or 35 countries. And I asked her, like, how do you see a snapshot, right? How do you see where you are in any moment in time? What happens when the board is asked, or your manager asks you, like, madam, where we are with the compliance of ISO 27001 or NIS2? And she said, well, we're using spreadsheets today. So it takes me 3 days to provide an answer. And I know that what I'm saying is not accurate, right? And this is the only way to go, because if you're not managing things in one central location, if you are not gathering evidence through the solution, if you don't have dashboards that are directly connected to all of this, then you are just shooting in the dark, right? You really can't know what's happening behind the scenes. And I think with this, I can maybe showcase a bit of how the Commugen platform looks like in relation to NIS2 and to other things as well. Let me just share my screen real quick here.
I think that's certainly, while you're sharing that certainly sounds, it is key, because we're definitely seeing, and I think everybody on looking at this session will know of people who are using spreadsheets, and may indeed be, I'm sure, still using spreadsheets, and even errors occur when you're using spreadsheets. You're pulling stuff in from one to the next to the other, but you can't automate, you can't report, and I'm very interested to see what this looks like.
Yeah, no, completely, Michael. And I wanted just to start maybe with an example about NIS2, right? The ability to have, again, in any moment in time, to have a look at what is your level of compliance, right? Or what all of my controls that we are fully compliant with, and on the contrary, let's see all of the ones that are not compliant. Of course, this is also relating to, again, something we talked about earlier, incident response, right? The fact that we need to see all of our incidents in one place and to be able to report on them. Again, something that NIS2 mandates. So again, by clicking on, I don't know, all of the incidents that are relating to embezzlement, we can see them here. But again, the system allows you to stay in control over what's happening behind the scenes. And this can be a dashboard like this, showcasing where we are with NIS2. It can also be something that is showcasing us the heat map of risks in the organization. And here again, if we will click on each and every one of the risks, or let's say the one that is critical and likely, we will get it, right? This is, I don't know, a defacement risk. And of course, by having another click on it, we can do a drill down and see the actual risk and how it looks like behind the scenes. So this really allows for a very high degree of visibility within the platform. Of course, if we are looking at a specific risk, we can see what is the risk title, what business unit it's connected to, what is the description, likelihood, impact, and of course, what assets can be impacted by this, right? So again, seeing everything very quickly, very easily, and also be able to explain things, right? So the board might ask, or the senior leadership might ask, you know, why does this risk level is here? You know, why it's 2.96 or why it's 2.1? This is very much explainable with the Commugen platform. You can go in and see each and every one of the risks, right? With just a click of a button and showcase, okay, this is the risk register. Those are the risks we have. And again, by clicking each and every one of them, we can do a drill down and see it further. Another topic we talked about earlier, Michael, is the fact that many organizations need to comply with more than one framework or more than one regulation, meaning NIS2 is not something that is the first regulation that people need to comply with. And because of that, we definitely have ISO 27001, NIST, SOC 2, CSF, CMMC, NIS2, and many other regulations that are already baked into the platform. We have over 150 standards that are readily available for our clients. And of course, by managing all of them in one place, a lot of time can be saved. And of course, an ability to see the overlap between the different frameworks is also something that is available for the users of Commugen. And of course, with the dashboards, we've seen really the sky's the limit. We can go and see different types of dashboard. We can see spider charts. We can see really the heat maps we've shown earlier, and many different perspectives as well. I'm wondering, Michael, is this what you wanted to see today?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think, you know, what I like about that is it's intuitive. It's something you can explain to boards. It's something that you can take and actually show that, I suppose, for an organization, they can show that they're in control of their issues because they've identified what's good, they've identified what's bad, and identifying what's bad is as important as identifying what's good, and show where you're in shape. And I guess one of the things that I know that from your platform, the no code element makes this a very easy way of managing this. So you don't need a million and one skills to build this out and deploy it, or is that fair?
I think this is fair. And actually, do you want me to show you something, Michael, real quick, like a demonstration of how the no code of Commugen works?
I think that would be very interesting, and because with my coding ability, it'd be perfect.
Still in the 80s. No, I'm joking. So, you know, let's just take an example and see how things can change really quickly in the Commugen platform thanks to the no-code nature of what we are doing. So let's take, again, one example, right, of one risk here in the system that you can see what is the name of the risk, the inherent risk levels, the risk owner, the approver, and such. And let's say we would like to add a new component here. Let's say we want to see whether this risk is relevant for my EU operations, to my US operations, or maybe to both of them, right? Of course, this attribute is not here at the moment, but let's see how we can add this attribute, how we can create a report based on this, and how we can also see a dashboard that reflects this as well. So all we need to do is to click on the model editor, right? And this is really something that can either be done by the Commugen team for you or be done individually by the client, right? Something that can be done super easy and super quickly. So as you can see, all of the attributes we have seen earlier are just built like Lego blocks. The name of the risk, the inherent risk, the risk owner, and those are things that can be also be moved around and changed in location. But for our example, let's take something from the toolbox. Let's take a select field perhaps, and drag it here. And let's call this one geography maybe. And let's put in the options here, EU and US or hybrid, right? Something that is relevant for both geographies, for both territories. And actually, after we've done this, we don't need to do anything else. Now, when we will go back to the risks component, we will see that for data leakage, we already have this new attribute here in the system, right? Geography wasn't here just a second ago, but here we can say this one is relevant for our EU operation. And now where we are at the report, we can, of course, see this new attribute for all of our risks. So let's add geography, right? And let's maybe also add, I don't know, risk ownership. And now we can drag it to be front and center, and maybe, I don't know, remove risk levels because it's not very interesting for us. And if you're going to edit mode, we can also change things from the report. So let's say those 3 risks are US related. This last one is a hybrid risk in terms of geography. And now when we've saved it, we can also segment the report. So let's say we only want to see US-based risks because, I don't know, I want to send something to my US general manager. And we can also now sort the risks based on the residual risk levels. So now we have a report that is suitable and adjustable and especially made for our, again, US risk manager. Now we can also share the report, right? To send it to someone via a spreadsheet, a PDF, an email, or also to create an alert automatically through here, right? So maybe we want an alert to be sent whenever we have a residual risk over 2, let's say. This is our threshold. We want an alert to be sent. So let's click on create a new alert. And we will say, whenever we have a risk that is US related above 2, we want it to be sent to the risk owner and risk approver. We want it to be sent maybe every Monday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time. And we want the email to say, hi, you have a new high risk, right? Something that is happening automatically, and the alerts will be sent automatically as well. So when we were getting back to this initial dashboard we have seen, we can see that this one is also completely customizable thanks to the no-code nature of what we are doing in Commugen. So let's click on settings. And again, we are seeing that everything we have seen so far is completely actionable, completely editable, something that we can, you know what, make some room in here. Let's move this to the left, maybe this a bit to the right. And in the space we got cleared here, we can add something new. So let's add, I don't know, a heat map, a spider web, a bubble chart, a Gantt. I think in our case, we will take a simple pie chart, something nice and easy. Let's make it a bit bigger. And of course, we will be able to connect it now to our Cyber GRC solution and to the risk model. And of course, we will choose to filter this by the geography. And let's say that EU will be shown in green, perhaps. US, let's see it in red. And if it's hybrid, let's see it in some neutral silver. And actually, this is it. Michael, congratulations. You have a new dashboard made for you, showcasing. Yeah, no, thank you so much. All of the EU risks, US and hybrid risks as well. And again, we've created it just in 2 minutes, right? Or even less than that.
Yeah, very, very impressive. And I mean, I think, you know, when we come back to one of the comments that we made at the start in terms of the availability of skills, I mean, we all see the challenge of availability of skills. But if you get somebody who's familiar with this as a platform, they can actually generate a lot of stuff for this. But just in terms of that, it's very impressive to me anyway. But and hopefully to the audience. But why are real-time compliance dashboards so critical for NIS2 compliance? What's you know, why is that such an important thing?
I think this is an important thing because, again, with new regulations coming in, with the board of directors asking, with clients asking, with vendors asking, this is something that we will need to be able to present and to be able to present faithfully, right? We want to tell people what the situation really is, right? Not to, I don't know, try to pull something out of thin air. We want it to be concrete. We want it to be real. And because of that, we are seeing that forward-thinking organizations and forward-thinking security leaders are using tools like this to showcase what is the exact compliance level we have, whether this is 91.8 or this is 50. You know, we need to understand what reality is, not to deceive ourselves. And because of that, those dashboards are so critical. You know, understanding for each and every one of our controls, what is the situation, right? Whether we are just starting something or whether we are already compliant. And of course, this is something that can be also done to different business units in the organization, meaning it's not one size fits all. Maybe we have specific sub-companies or specific business units that have different levels of maturity. This can also be segmented and can be shown on a wall of shame or wall of fame, depending on how you want to see this, right? But can be seen on one pane of glass, a comparison of all of our different business units and where they are.
And I guess ultimately, how does this improve interaction with auditors and regulators? I assume it just makes it shows that you're in control, I guess, and it shows that you know what you're doing, and it can be explained. Is that any thoughts on that as to ultimately the relationship with the regulator and how that changes?
So I think this comment is spot on, Michael, and we are seeing it. I think almost every time one of our clients is having an external assessment by an auditor conducted for them, almost every time we are after it getting a message either via WhatsApp or phone or email saying, you know what, Itai, instead of taking 3 days, it took us just, I don't know, 8 hours to pass on this assessment. Because when you have everything in one place, when you have all of the evidence in one place, you don't need to start to scratch your head and say, well, Michael, I know you want me to show you the evidence for control ABC. I need to check whether, is it in this folder? Maybe I saved it on my email, maybe on my personal computer. No, maybe this woman from finance sent it to me. No, this shouldn't be the case. You need to have one place where all of your evidence are being stored. They can be accessed immediately. And I can tell you, when an auditor sees that you are working in a structured manner, when you have everything in the same place, after seeing 2 or 3 examples, they will tell you, know what, Michael, I understand where this is going. Yeah, exactly.
You're proving your credibility. Question here: how long does it typically take to implement a no-code compliance platform, and what resources are required? From the internal team, from the Commugen team, etc.
So this is a great question, Michael, because I think many professionals are, still have those past memories of implementing the legacy GRC tools. I won't call them names, but we all know which tool I'm thinking of when I'm saying this. But the very big advantage of using a no-code solution is the time to value, right? Not only you will get something that is completely customized and completely adjusted and tailor-made for your organization, the timing is so much faster, right? We've just finished an implementation for an international bank of a very big overarching cyber risk management solution. You know how much time it took, Michael, to do it, even to install it on their environment? It took just 3 weeks. Just 3 weeks from start to finish, being completely operational. Of course, timing can vary a little bit based on organizations, but this is something we are measuring in weeks, not in months, not in quarters, but in weeks. And having this in place can really provide time to value in very impressive ways.
Good. There's a question there from a live question there in relation. I mean, you probably stirred it up there by talking about the change in the geography from looking at the EU and the US positions. But the question is the NIS2 compliance tool of Commugen available for all EU countries? And what about the countries where NIS2 is not yet transposed in national law?
Yeah. So I think the important thing to understand about the NIS2 requirement and it being transposed to different countries. First of all, we are seeing this process happening all over the world, right? If we're speaking specifically about Ireland, we've all seen the proposed bill was published almost a year ago. I understand now with the new government, it might come into effect and transposed sooner rather than later. But the thing we are seeing is that even for countries that are not subjected specifically to NIS2, even North America, even Asia Pacific, the organization can have this requirement of being NIS2 compliant, even if they are not having the EU as their primary place of work. And the reason to that is because, again, we started with the third party piece. If you're a third party of an organization that needs to be NIS2 compliant, they might require you to be NIS2 compliant as well. If you're in a country that should transpose the law very quickly, this is also something that can also happen sooner rather than later. I hope I catched
and I love it. I mean, or certainly sooner rather than later is definitely a phrase that's used by politicians in Ireland. But anyway, we'll move on from that. But it's probably politicians globally. There's quite a number of questions coming in, but maybe if we look at the structured frameworks and just talk about structured frameworks as the five things, the last of the five headings, if you like, and we can move on past that, and then we can look at some of the additional questions that have come in. Yeah. The final recommendation, I suppose, it's around structured frameworks. Why is the architectural approach so important in terms of driving this to compliance?
Yeah. So I think, Michael, having a structured framework for this is absolutely crucial. And the reason to that, because as we've said earlier, cybersecurity and GRC is not something that was born with NIS2, right? NIS2 is replacing NIS1. It is being added to GDPR, to ISO 27001, to all of those different frameworks. So when most organizations, most of the clients we are speaking with are saying NIS2 is an addition to what we are currently doing. And because of that, we need to have a continuation, something that will be seamless and smooth and that will connect the different pieces together. And as we've seen earlier, and as we've talked about earlier, the Commugen solution allows you to see the overlap between the different frameworks and standards, meaning many of the NIS2 controls, many of the NIS2 clauses and sections are not something that is a new invention. Many of them already exist in ISO 27001, in the US-based NIST 853. So what we are doing is that we are having a look at the overlap, we are cross-mapping the different frameworks together and allowing you to answer one and to comply many. This is the logic behind it. I think you are muted, Michael.
Sorry, I put myself on mute there. I was coughing. Sorry, but I think that I think that everybody here will be familiar that they have other compliance. They have different frameworks. So people are blending multiple frameworks, and centralization ultimately is the key. So what you're saying is you're looking at the cross mapping between all the various frameworks, and if you've done something correctly in one, you may well be addressed in the other. So you're then identifying the gaps and taking it there from the gap point of view and building it out from that point of view. I guess ultimately, and maybe if I can just go back on these five headings, and then we can come to Q&A, because I'm conscious of time and everybody's time. There's quite a number of questions in there as well. So at the end of the day, we're talking about an automated implementing automation, implementing an automated process which will massively improve everybody's capability to do this, addressing third-party risk management in a structured, planned way, in enforcing internal controls, which is something that they may be there, but they may not be enforced, and managing that, and then really the reporting element, the dashboards, and looking at how you're actually pulling all of that data together and delivering that data as something which can be reported on, which can be acted on, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not just something data sitting there for data's sake. And then the structured frameworks, which is really, the multiplicity of compliance drivers, et cetera, and how you actually can bring them together, blend them together. But they're the five elements that we wish to highlight. I don't know if you wish to add anything to any of those, Itai, before we take some questions, or maybe we take some questions and I'll get you to do a summary later on if that works for you.
But sounds good to me.
There's one here. It says, where's the data being populated from on an automated basis?
Yeah, so this is, again, thank you for asking it, to whoever asked it. I will answer it in two ways. First of all, the technical aspect, and second of all, the data sovereignty perspective. So technically, the Commugen solution allows you to upload, to import, to inhale data in a few different ways. The first one, fully automated REST API and webhook, right? We are just connecting the two pieces together, and Commugen is pulling all of the data, right? A second way to do it is the more classic way of just importing a CSV, importing a spreadsheet, XLS, JSON, XML, you name it. This is something we are doing all the time, either in a repetitive manner or something that happens just point in time. The third way, of course, is just manually inputting data. Of course, we are trying to limit this as much as possible. But again, something that, this is reality. Sometimes you need to write something down, right? But the vast majority of information is being inhaled from REST APIs and from spreadsheets. This is the technical aspect. the data sovereignty aspect is, and I'm not sure I've mentioned it earlier, but the Commugen solution can either be installed or being deployed as a SaaS solution in the EU, meaning SaaS in Ireland, hosted on one of the big cloud providers. Another alternative is having a private deployment, meaning on either the cloud or on-prem environment of our clients. This is something we are doing quite a lot. And I think this is another big advantage of having this data closer to heart, let's say, because many most sensitive organizations we are working with, banks, manufacturing, critical infrastructure, are telling us, you know what, it's all good and well, but I need this data. I don't want to send it to a third party, and I don't want to upload it to some cloud environment. I want it to be on my environment. I want it to be governed by myself. So this is definitely one option Commugen is providing.
There's a question here, which is, well, I suppose, it's like a confession. Somebody says, listen, I'm actually using spreadsheets in my organization for compliance, and I'd like to change to a new solution. A person probably has a hairstyle like mine, then worn out and gone. But I'm afraid that migration to a new solution would take too much effort from my team and be heavy work and would take ages. What are the experiences with clients migrating to Commugen from spreadsheets?
Yeah, so I think this is always, almost in every conversation I'm having with CISOs and GRC experts, this is the question that roams in the back of the head of everybody thinking about a new GRC solution. And I can tell you, first of all, Michael, that Commugen has a lot of experience in doing those migrations. A. B, the example I gave earlier of the bank that took 3 weeks to onboard a new solution was a situation of onboarding or migrating from spreadsheets. And third of all, we have created this ability to inhale data, to import existing structures, especially because of what you're saying. We understand that most organizations we are speaking with have already something in place, either a spreadsheet or a legacy tool or something like that. And we are experts in doing this migration, experts in doing this customization based on the existing situation for our clients.
Yeah, and I guess really for that person, and is if we have a conversation, we'll take this offline afterwards and have a conversation with that person. We can talk about, have a conversation about their environment, their issues, and how we should how it can be done, if you like, how it can be done for them, and what the process would be. Question here is, can you walk through how data collection and input works with the Commugen platform? Specifically, is it primarily manual entry by the user, or are there built-in tools, templates, or integrations that help streamline or automate that process? I think you probably covered some of those things there, but maybe if there's any other aspect to that you'd like to talk through the automation. Is there significant automation tools?
Definitely so, Michael. And I think that, again, I think I answered this or covered most of it in my last answer, but I will say that, again, the approach is that everything that can be automated should be automated. And data gathering is definitely one of those pieces, right? That should be automated with REST APIs, with webhooks, with a spreadsheet onboarding. Commugen should be your one pane of glass, should be your center of truth for everything Cyber GRC related.
Okay. And there's a question here then. Many Irish business, sorry, I'm looking to the side to the screen where the questions are coming up, so I'm not ignoring anybody, but many Irish businesses operate with small IT and security systems, or teams rather. How realistic is it for smaller organizations to implement and manage a GRC platform like Commugen without the need for an large internal resource base?
Yeah. So, Michael, I think this is another very good question, and something we've talked about in the beginning when we started with automation. That was the first bullet point, you might say, of what needs to happen to streamline NIS2. And I understand it completely, the question. I don't know a single IT organization that is overstaffed. Everybody are understaffed, under-resourced, and because of that, you need to have some assistance, like Commugen, like automation tools that will take some of the load off, right? We are seeing it time and time again. Before Commugen, a GRC team or a cybersecurity team or an IT team could do, I don't know, 10 audits a year. With Commugen, you can do 20 audits a year, right? This is the difference because you are much more effective and can do a lot more with those automation tools in place.
Fair enough. No, I think it's always accountants tell everybody they're overstaffed because everybody else knows it's slightly different. But anyway, we'll move on. I won't victimize accountants just for that. But many organizations, sorry, another question here. Many Irish organizations work with external IT providers. How does Commugen support collaboration between internal teams and third-party partners when managing compliance tasks?
This is, again, a very good question. And I think something, again, that maybe ties back into the data piece, right? We are speaking about very sensitive data here. I think we all understand it. The risk register of an organization can be seen to some extent like the treasure map to hacking the organization, right? Those are the weak points, and this is where you need to go. And because of that, all of the information in Commugen is governed by role-based access, meaning people will see only what they need to see and have the ability to edit only what they need to edit. This role-based access is being governed either by an internal Commugen multi-factor authentication or by connecting to the organization's identity solution, right? So this can be your Active Directory if you're doing it internally. This can be Entra, or this can be Okta, or this can be any SAML or other solution. And yes, definitely you can work with your external IT teams on this. And again, whether you're choosing to host it as a SaaS solution, whether you're hosting it on your private environment, this is something we are seeing for almost all of our clients, that we need to collaborate between different teams, internal and external as well. Yes.
Yeah, so there's one last question I'd like maybe to take, and then maybe give you a chance to do a sum up in terms of the key points there, and it probably really is where people might start. So for organizations just starting their NIS2 compliance journey, what would you recommend as the first step towards automation?
Yes. So I think the first step is understanding you need to be NIS2 compliant, right? is reading through the regulation and understanding whether you are in the a class A, class B, whether you are, what kind of organization you are, and whether you need to do this. But after you understand you need to be NIS2 compliant, I would strongly advise organizations to start with a roadmap for this, because being NIS2 compliant is not a one-day thing, right? It's not something that happens in an instant. And I think this a program building should take into account what needs to be done, who will do this, and what are the tools and resources I have readily available for me, right? And when you are building this program, you need to understand, again, who will lead this charge, right? Am I doing it myself, or will I be assisted by, again, by the legal department, by the IT folks, and put a specific name next to it, right? I will lead this, Itai, but I need Michael to do this with me in order for it to succeed. Then the next chapter, as I've said, tools and resources. What I need to have in my arsenal in order to complete this task in the best way possible. Do I need an automation tool? Do I need some external consultant to join me on this, or do I understand everything on my own? So to create this roadmap, I would suggest approving it with senior leadership or with board of directors. I think asking for a budget for this specific project is also something that needs to happen, as this is a new requirement, something that requires a lot of work. Asking for a budget in this tools and resources piece is also important. And then, again, building this or embedding this roadmap on a tool like Commugen will help you to get to a very quick success.
Okay, and I'm conscious of everybody's time. So before I just ask, I tried to just go through and sum up the 5 key points there. What I would say is as well, at Cyber Expo Ireland, which is an event that we Renaissance host in Leopardstown Racecourse on the 22nd of May. And that's, so it's relatively close. It's a nice venue, certainly relatively close to those in Dublin, but even it's in Ireland. So the Commugen team will be there, and they'd be very, very happy to have a conversation with anybody about any other areas, elements, etc., queries that they might have. And indeed, we'd be very happy that if anybody has any questions after this session, and please come back to any of the Renaissance team or indeed any of the Commugen team, and we can set up a follow-up conversation to take you through any queries or questions that you might have. But if I pass over to Itai then, just to do a summary, maybe just a wrap up in terms of the 5 key elements, pass over to you, Itai.
Yes. So first of all, Michael, thank you for hosting this entire session and guiding us through the different questions and topics. And definitely, if you have any more, and this is to the audience, if anybody has any more questions, you want to have a personalized demo, you want to speak with the team in Cyber Expo Ireland, please do so. And about what we spoke today, I think we all understand now how important it is to think about NIS2 ahead of time, and not to get to this point of I have to be NIS2 compliant tomorrow, because this will certainly not happen. And the 5 main topics, when you are when you want to streamline your NIS2 compliant, I would say, first of all, automation, because none of us have enough resources or can stand the risk of doing it all manually. Second of all, we need a structured approach to third-party risk management, preferably, again, an automated one. Third of all, the controls have to be enforced. We can't just do with a policy document. We need to see those policy documents being translated into actual controls with ownership, with testing, with a specific frequency, with an ability to add evidence to them. Fourth, we need to have dashboards in order for us, CISOs, security, GRC experts, to see where we are in any moment in time, and of course, to be able to showcase this to our colleagues and to our leadership. And 5, a structured framework that will enable us to tie everything together, the risks to the controls, to the tests, to the vendors, and the different controls and different frameworks to one another. This is it. I hope this session was insightful for all of you. And I just want to thank you, Michael, and all of our participants for spending time with us today.
Thank you, Itay, and thank you everybody for attending. And any questions, Cyber Expo Ireland, 22nd of May, or indeed reach out to the Renaissance or Commugen team. Thank you.